The Bible begins with a problem that most people read straight past. It happens in the very first chapter. God is about to make the first human, and this is what he says. Let us make man in our image. Us, our. Read that again. Not, let me make man. Not, in my image. Us, our. For 2,000 years, people have been explaining that sentence away. They have said it means the Trinity. They have said it means angels. They have said it is just a royal way of speaking, the way a king says we. And here is what I want to show you today. All of those answers came later, much later. And the oldest evidence we have, older than the Bible itself, points somewhere else entirely. Somewhere stranger than aliens. This is made in our image. Let's start by reading it slowly, exactly as it is written. The verse begins. And he said, one person, singular. 4 words later, let us make man in our image, plural. And then the very next verse turns around and says, so God created man in his own image. Back to singular again. 3 switches, 2 verses, singular, plural, singular. Now, there is a very popular explanation for this. People say it is the royal we, the way a king or a queen says we are pleased when they only mean themselves. It sounds reasonable. There is just one problem with it. That royal way of speaking, in Hebrew, works on naming words. It does not work on doing words, on verbs. And the word here, let us make, is a doing word. A scholar named Gerhard Hasel checked this and wrote it up in an academic journal back in 1975. His finding was blunt. There are no clear examples in Hebrew of the royal we being used with verbs at all. And this particular verb, the word for make, is never used that way. So the most common explanation you will hear for this sentence does not actually survive contact with the grammar, which raises a strange question. If the sentence is simple, why has anyone needed to explain it? Because they have. For a very long time, and we can watch them do it. The oldest surviving explanation is not Christian. It comes from a Jewish thinker called Philo in Egypt about 2,000 years ago. He said God used the word us because humans can choose to do evil. So God gave the risky part of the job to helpers. That way, if the human turned out badly, God could not be blamed. Think about what that is. That is not an explanation of the text. That is an insurance policy. About 100 years later, a Christian writer named Justin Martyr wrote out a debate with a Jewish teacher, and in it, he attacks 2 Jewish readings of this verse, that God was talking to himself, the way a person thinks out loud, or that God was talking to the earth the human was made from. Notice what that tells us. He has to argue. In the 2nd century, this verse did not have one obvious meaning. It had a fight around it. The idea that God was talking to Jesus, the reading most Christians know today, turns up in a letter written roughly 1,000 years after the verse itself. But the most honest moment comes from the Jewish tradition. In an old collection of teachings, there is a scene where Moses is writing this verse down, and he stops. And he asks God, more or less, "Why are you handing people an argument against you?" And God tells him to write it anyway. Sit with that for a second. The tradition that guards this book has a story in it where the man writing the sentence objects to the sentence. There is one more. There is an old tradition that says a group of 72 Jewish scholars once translated the Bible into Greek for a king, and that they quietly changed this verse to say, "I shall make man," instead of "let us." But I have to be careful here, so let me be exact. That story is real. It is recorded in Jewish tradition. The change is not. The old Greek copies we actually have still say, "Let us make." So somebody remembered this line being softened for a king, and the evidence says nobody ever managed it. Now hold that thought, because there is a reason nobody could quietly delete the word us. The sentence did not start in the Bible. There is a clay tablet from Mesopotamia, modern Iraq, written in 2 ancient languages side by side. Scholars call it Car 4. It is about how humans were made, and in it, the gods speak. Together, in the plural, they say roughly, "Let us slaughter the gods, and let us create humankind from their blood. Let us." And then the tablet says what humans are for. "The labor of the gods shall be their labor." That sentence is older than the Bible. Now the whole question changes. For 2 chapters we have been asking, who was God talking to? The Trinity? Angels? Himself? But that question assumes this sentence is unique. It is not. A council of gods saying, "Let us make humans," was already an old idea in that part of the world, written down long before Genesis was written. So the real question is not, who is the US? The real question is, why does this exact sentence keep getting written? And when you go back to the older versions, they answer something Genesis leaves out. They tell you why humans were made. You are not going to like it. There is a much older story from the same region. Scholars call it Atrahasis, and it opens on a scene nobody expects. Before humans exist, the work of the world is done by the younger gods. They dig the canals, they carry the dirt, and in this story, they have had enough. They go on strike. The text says they burned their tools, so the senior gods meet and they solve the labor problem. They make a replacement worker, and the way they make it is the detail that stays with you. One god is chosen. The text says the one who had intelligence, and he is killed. His flesh and his blood are mixed with clay, and out of that comes the first human. Another famous Babylonian text ends the same way. Humans are made from a god's blood, and then the text gives the reason in plain words. So the gods could be set free from work. That is where the human race comes from in the oldest written versions we have. Not love, not loneliness, a labor dispute. And the spark in us, the thing that makes us different from animals, in that story it is not a gift. It is a part taken from something that was killed. Now, I want to be clear about something before we go on, because this is exactly where most videos about this topic go wrong. None of that makes it aliens. If you have ever seen a video about ancient astronauts, you have heard the word Anunnaki. The story goes that the Anunnaki were beings from another planet who came to Earth, made humans as workers to mine gold, and left. Most of that traces back to one writer, Zechariah Sitchin. And I want to be honest about him, because being honest is the only reason to trust anything else in this video. The word Anunnaki does not mean those who came from heaven. Scholars who read these languages translate it as something closer to princely offspring. It is a word for Mesopotamia's own gods. Sitchin was not trained in this field. He had a degree in economics and he worked as an executive at a shipping company. He taught himself. And the famous picture, the ancient seal he said showed our solar system with an extra planet, has been checked by scholars. The shape in the middle is a star, not the sun symbol that culture actually used. And the writing on the seal does not mention planets at all. The extra planet, Nibiru, is not out there either. NASA has called it an internet hoax. An object like that would be visible in the night sky with your own eyes. So no, the tablets are not a landing report. But, and this is the part the debunkers sometimes rush past, the plural in Genesis is still real. Serious scholars say so. One of the most respected, Mark Smith, reads that us as a god speaking to a council of other divine beings, something older than the idea of one single god still sitting inside the text. The plural is real, it just isn't a spaceship. So what was it? To answer that, you have to know what the word image actually meant to the people who wrote it. We hear, made in God's image, and we think of something inside us. A soul, a spark, a personality. That is not what the word meant. The Hebrew word is tselem, and it appears 17 times in the Hebrew Bible. 12 of those times it means a physical object, an idol, a carved figure, something you could pick up and smash with a hammer. It is a word for a statue, and we have the statue. In Syria, archaeologists found a stone statue of a king about 2.5 meters tall from roughly 2,800 years ago. Written on it, in 2 languages, is a description of the statue itself, and the words it uses are the same 2 words as Genesis, image, and likeness. So those words in that world described a piece of carved stone shaped like a ruler. Now, why did kings put up statues of themselves? Because a king cannot be everywhere. So he sets up his image in a far-off city he has conquered, and that statue stands there and says, "He rules here." He is not in the room, but he is still in charge. The image is how an absent ruler stays present. We even have a letter from an official writing to an Assyrian king, telling him that he is the very image of a god. It was not poetry. It was close to a job title, and in that world it belonged to one man, the king. Now put Genesis back on top of that. Genesis takes the title that belonged to kings and gods and hands it to everybody. A scholar named Richard Middleton wrote a whole book about this. He calls it a deliberate move, taking the royal status and giving it to every human being. So here's the answer, and I told you it was stranger than aliens. Made in our image does not mean you contain a piece of God. It means you are the statue. You were placed here to stand for someone who is not in the room. That is what the oldest reading gives you, not a soul like a spark, a job. You are the mark that somebody left behind. Proof of a ruler nobody can see. Here is the part that should stop you. We do it now. In 2010, a team of scientists led by Craig Venter built a living cell from instructions typed into a computer. They wrote out the genetic code, they built it chemically, they put it inside a cell, and it came alive and began to copy itself. Venter said it was the first species on Earth whose parent was a computer, but that is not the part that matters here. Before they made it, they hid messages inside the DNA, their own watermarks written into the code of a living thing, a list of the names of the people who made it, a web address, and 3 quotations, including a line from the physicist Richard Feynman. What I cannot build, I do not understand. Read that again. The first thing humans built in their own image, we signed it. From the inside, in its own code. A few years later, the same team built a stripped-down cell with only the genes it needed to live, 473 genes, and they admitted something remarkable. For about 150 of them, they still do not know what the instruction does. We can build a living thing without understanding a third of its own manual. And in 2018, a scientist in China edited the genes of human babies before they were born. He was sent to prison for 3 years. So we are now the ones who make things in our own image. We are the ones deciding what a body should be. And when we do it, we leave our names inside the code. Which means the question in that first sentence of the Bible is not a dead question. It is our question now. If someone ever made us on purpose and left a mark, what would it look like? We would have no idea we were reading it. Ezekiel had a wheel. This time the strange thing is a sentence. One word, really, us. Next time, the sons of God came down, took wives, and taught humans how to make weapons and medicine. That is not a myth I am inventing. It is in a book that almost made it into the Bible. That is the next story. See you there.